Next up, reading files. There's a few different ways we can read in text from a file, and one of these is using this command open. We can either read it one line at a time or all at once, and then as we read the lines of the file, they are removed from this file handle object. So there's a file that I want you to download from GitHub. So we're going to go back to, okay, first thing is, so there's a few things to cover here. What I am, yeah, and again, this could be an argument, but in this case, I'm going to specify it as a text file. So what this is saying is I'm going to use this file name that is found in /data/woodchuck.txt. So can anyone tell me what this means? Right, right. So we're in lessons right now, right? That's where we're living. And this is saying I want to go up one folder. So that would be, it's in the SIO 209 folder, and then within that it's in a folder called data, and then the file name is woodchuck.txt. So it's, but we don't have this directory called data, right? So in fact, let me make sure I don't have it either. I'm gonna open up another tab because this one is using the notebook right now. So I'm gonna open up another tab and just go to SIO 209 and type ls, and I have this lessons folder, and I have some other stuff, but I don't have a folder called data. So if I execute this command, okay, this one will work because I'm just passing the name of that location. But if I try to open and then do something, I'm going to get an error. It says no such file or directory ... /data/woodchuck.txt. That's because I don't have that file on my computer. So we're going to go back to the terminal, and we're going to do two things. First of all, we're going to make the directory data. So we're going to type mkdir data, and now when you type ls, you'll see that we have data. And again, your folder should maybe just have lessons and data, and maybe that's it. Now we need to go to GitHub and get the file, because this notebook is meant to work in the GitHub repository. So that's why I used a relative path, because in the GitHub repository, this file exists in this location, which is up one, and then in data, and then that's where it's found. So I can go back to GitHub, and I'm in lessons. So I'm going to go under the main root directory of this repository, and you can see there's this thing called data. So that's where it is. So remember, data and lessons are at the same level. So I can click on data, and then woodchuck.txt, and then raw, and I could just do save as, and then we're going to go to home directory, SIO 209 data, and page source is what we want. Now if we go back to our terminal, we can go into data and see that file's there, and you can even cat and see the whole file. So that's what the file looks like. Okay, everybody following along there? So now we're going to go back to our notebook, back to our web browser, lesson 6, So we entered in this string, which is the path to that file, and we stored that as this variable we're just calling file name. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try to run this command again, and it's going to open that file name and store it as txt, which is this text IO wrapper handle object. We're going to just type this, we're going to print this command or print this string that says content of the file %r:, and that %r is going to be filled in with the name of that file, with that variable file name, and then we're going to take that handle object and then do .read parentheses and print that. So what this is doing again is it's just printing this string at the top, which is putting that using that raw format, so the file name is in quotes, and then it's printing txt.read, and that read function, when applied to this file handle object, is printing out the whole contents of the file.
What's the R form?
This is raw format. So if we just wanted to print that as a string instead, we could do the S and it wouldn't have quotes. So the
Is that what in homework 3 when we were talking about the %r?
Yes.
That's what you want the difference?
Yes.
Okay, so you're thinking of the S as normal. Like
Yes.
that.
Yes. Yeah, so there's the advantage of the %r is in certain cases it's useful to know how this object is being stored in your machine. However, with Jupyter notebooks, that's less of an issue because by default it will use raw format. So if I print file name here and it's not a print command, it's showing me that it's a string because it's putting it in quotes. But if I did print file name, it doesn't show me the quotes. So using this is less necessary in Jupyter notebooks because it kind of by default it has that behavior. You don't have to type all these print commands. You can just type the name of the thing and it'll display it for you. Printing is more for like making something. It's less for debugging and writing code and more for the user to see some output. So if we, and sort of to illustrate that point, if we don't wrap that txt.read in a print command, we'll just see everything displayed as it is in the file. So when you read this file, this is it read in as a string. There's a new line character here that you can't see, but you know it's there because it takes you to the next line, and then the rest of this text, and then another new line character, and then the third line, and then another new line character. And you know that third one is there because if it weren't, this prompt would be sitting up right next to that question mark. You'll notice that sometimes you'll get, if there's not a terminal new line character, your prompt will be stuck next to the end of the file.
Is there a way to look in terminal and see what it is with all those characters?
There is. There's a, I think it's an argument of less that lets you see those characters. You can also open it up in a text editor. This is what I would typically do. So I use Sublime Text, and I have a shortcut for that. And it's a little hard to see, but it prints an extra little space there. And in fact, if I do find /n, I'll be able to see those new line characters. That's because I have, I think if I turn off regular expressions it won't work. Yeah, so I have regular expressions turned on, and it will show me those new line characters.
How did you make the shortcut for Sublime?
That's in the .bash profile.
Is it in the one that we all did?
It might not be in the one that we all did together. I think there was an example for like Microsoft Excel. So all you would do is you would just change the file path to match, and change the name of the shortcut to like Sublime, or if you use Atom. In fact, I think I have Atom too. And I'm not familiar with Atom, so I don't know exactly how to do. There might be a way to show, hidden characters and things like that. But yeah, and then there is a way with less. We can do less woodchuck, but there is a way to show hidden characters, but I don't recall off the top of my head. And then there's this command called type, which is really handy because it will show you the data type of a given object or variable. So .txt is this file handle object, and we can see that by typing type parentheses .txt, which is the thing that we stored this open the output of an open command on a path on a file is this text IO wrapper. It's not essential that you understand that, but so you have some idea about what this thing is. So we can do this again, and then there's a different command called readline. So we're going to open this file again, storing it as this variable txt, and then readline will only read one line at a time. And as we read the lines, they're removed from txt. So if we enter this again, we're going to get the second line and then the third line. And then if we enter this command again, we just get an empty string because there's nothing left. There's also a way to read in those lines as a list. So instead of here it's a single string, here it's one string at a time, here it's a list where each line is an element of a list. And you could imagine that would be useful in certain cases. Now, there's a handy way to, when we do this, when we're opening this file, technically we're supposed to close the file when we're done with it. So to avoid having to do that, we can use this with command. So this will put this whole opening and closing and extracting information from this file under a single block, that when the block is done executing, it will automatically close the file for us. So we're going to specify explicitly that when we're opening the file, we want to open it to read, and then it's going to be called F. So this would be like instead of txt, we're calling this thing F in this case. So with open file name reading as F, we're going to then say for each line in F, strip the new line character and then print the line. And then print will actually add a new line character too. So if we hadn't done that, we would have gotten an extra new line character. We can also do all of the things that we just did before. We can read the whole thing together, we can read just one line, or we can read it as a list. Yeah. The R strip. Yeah. So that's you can comment out the line, and you can see that it gives you a, because when you the default behavior of print is to like if you say print it automatically is adding a new line. You don't have to type this every time, for example. And so in this case, like you would want to strip those so that when you print, it's not giving you two. In practice, a lot of stuff you won't have to use that much because if you're doing data science, Pandas has really nice ways to import files that you don't have to use these are the basic Python things, but they're good to know because this is the core functionality. Just one second. So in Pandas, you would say we already imported Pandas as PD, so we're going to say pd.readcsv file name is the name of the file, and then we're going to say there's no header. So we're going to store that as a data frame, and now this file is now stored as a data frame. Now typically in Pandas you would be dealing with numerical data or a mixture of numerical and text data. This is just an example to show you that it's very simple to read this file. In this case it's a text file, but we can call it a CSV file, and it'll work. Sorry, he had a question. Yeah.
For the strip command,
yeah.
I assume that you could specify where, like if you have a list of things and then the empty, you don't have an argument within the parentheses and it just looks for a new line, but you could probably specify like a number or a particular character where you want to split it and it should work, right?
So you can split. So our strip is in particular to strip the new line characters from the end of all the lines. If you have this string like this one here, if this was your string, you could do a split command on the new line character, and to split that into a list, for example. Is that kind of what you're thinking, or yeah? Or if there are commas, you could split using commas.
I was just asking because it seems like Python, if you leave the argument empty, it just takes the default argument. But I feel like most commands you should be able to specify.
Yeah, so we can do this. And so it's not. I mean, it depends on the command. There is an argument called size, and I think that sets the it sets how many times we do it. So okay, that's read, and you were asking about rstrip, so we can look at rstrip. Where is it? There we go. So we can do so we can define which characters we want to remove. So we could have new line, and like there's other there's something called a carriage return, which is like \R. That's used in certain software. There are like Windows has a certain new line character, Mac has a certain new line character. So yeah, you have the there's some options there. But this is in particular to strip. By default, it strips the trailing white space, which is typically new line characters, but it could also be spaces. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so earlier I think on the error with the import pandas.
Yep.
So now, like, of course, when we do this one, it's in the main pandas fun.
Right.
So does that mean that it happens for pandas again?
Yes. So potentially, if you import it already, it should be there, but maybe it's not in this environment. So you can go to your Home tab and then click on New Terminal, and you can do conda list, and you should see pandas. If you don't see pandas, that means you need to import it. So then you just type conda import pandas. Sorry, conda install. And then if you hit, I can do this with you, but it shouldn't. It should say I already have it.
You get a conda environment, yes, I would go ahead and say yes for the seed.
Yeah, you want to install it.
Yeah.
And we're not really using it much, but we do need it for that one example. So great. So let's take a quick break.